Judith the Scourge Diva versus the other Rakdos commander from the new set, Rakdos the Showstopper. Couple of cards in hand. I very much like that hand actually. We can get into Dark Confident on turn 2 most likely. So we'll throw down our bad lands and pass it over to our opponent. And we'll go over the commander. Rakdos the Showstopper is a flying trample demon. For 6 mana, it's a 6/6 in Rakdos. When it enters the battlefield, flip a coin for each creature that isn't a demon, devil or imp. Destroy each of the creatures whose coin comes up tails. We will go for our Dark Confident, and it looks like our opponent is just on the mana fixing plan so far. We'll start to get our card draw on the go. Judith the Scourge Diva is 3 mana in Rakdos for a 2/2 that gives our other creatures +1 to their attack. And whenever a non-token creature you control dies, it deals 1 damage to any target. Our opponent has gone for a Disfigure there. So let's try, if we get a land next turn, or actually even if we don't get a land, we can go for the Loyal Apprentice as well as the Reanimate on Dark Confident. I think we'll go for Judith right now. And out comes Chromatic Lantern. That is good mana fixing for our opponent. And they go for Tetzimok, Primal Death. Okay, you can pay black and reveal it from your hand to put a prey counter on a creature. Then when it enters the battlefield, destroy each creature with a prey counter on it. So it looks like, and that is 6 mana to get that to come out. So it looks like Judith's days are numbered. We'll still go for Loyal Apprentice. And we'll get down the Reanimate on the Dark Confident. Seemed to be a pause there from our opponent. Either they didn't like what they were seeing, or they might have a pact for us. What is it? Slaughter Pact? The black spell that costs 0 to destroy a non-black, non-artifact, I think it is. We'll show off just how good Loyal Apprentice is in this game. If you've got Judith on the field, as soon as you get down Loyal Apprentice, it's often a free 5 points of damage straight away. Now throw it back over to our opponent. We can just yield through the turn. There's nothing we're going to do. Alright, going after Dark Confident again. We can go for Colligan's Command. Well, we'll ping our opponent first, thanks to Judith. Yeah, we can go for Colligan's Command and fish the Dark Confident back out. Our opponent seems to be very adamant on keeping that away from us. Alright, a 2/2 with First Strike. Hexproof from white. Do we want Dark Confident? We can hope for another black source actually, and well, we've got answers either way. I'm just wondering if we want to go for Colligan's Command because we can destroy the Chromatic Lantern. I'll put a stop on the upkeep for that Vampiric Tutor, because if we go for Urborg, yeah, I think we have Urborg in the deck, so we can go for Necropotence next turn maybe. So let's go for Colligan's Command, I think. That will be an artifact. Destroy an artifact and 2 damage to any target. That way we can swing in with everything. Nice 2 for 1 on our opponent. They're down to 4 cards in hand. And then we get our Thopter. That is another 2 points of damage. Loyal Apprentice doing what Loyal Apprentice does best in this deck. And they really need a board wipe now. We've got 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 11 damage on our opponent next turn, and then we can finish them off with a Fiery Confluence perhaps. Yep, that's not fast enough for them. Okay, Duress. I wonder what Duress goes for here. Pick your poison in a way. Yeah, they go for the Fiery Confluence because they're scared of what that can do to them next turn. Yeah, and then they decide to scoop it. We were going to deal, what did we say, 5, and then 2, 4, 6, yeah, 11 damage. So if we could have gotten 2 points of damage off on them. I'm just looking through here to see if we could have gotten that off. In fact, we could have done. I was just wondering if we had another burn spell, but we could have gone for Vampiric Tutor onto a sack outlet, or we could have played Plaguecrafter. No, Plaguecrafter wouldn't have worked. So if we got a sack outlet with the Vampiric Tutor, we could have killed Judith and the Loyal Apprentice, and that would have dealt the last 2 damage to our opponent. Judith does trigger herself if she hits the graveyard, which she often doesn't because she'll go into the command zone. But if Judith dies, that is, if she hits the graveyard, then she can ping something if you ever need to do that, and that might have been our means of victory there. So that was a quick one. Didn't really get to see anything from Rakdos the Showstopper, but we certainly got to see how fast-paced we can be with this deck. So hope you all enjoyed it, and I will see you all in the next one. I'm tribalkai on the EDH channel. Thank you for watching. Judith the Scourge Diva versus Keranos, God of Storms. The match is already underway because Magic Online was lagging behind and going a bit weird, so I didn't want to leave my opponent waiting any longer than I already had. We will go for a tap land in first, and we'll throw it back over to our opponent. Keranos, God of Storms. Apparently my video is done rendering. I don't know if you can see that in the top right corner actually. If you couldn't, it was just telling me that Final Cut had done with editing a video. Where are we here? We'll just go in for another tap land and throw it over to our opponent again. Probably going for Judith the Scourge Diva next turn because she is a 3-mana commander, Rakdos. A 2/2 gives our other creatures +1 to their power. And whenever a non-token creature we control dies, she pings something. Keranos, God of Storms, is 5 mana for an Izzet commander, 6/5 Indestructible God. As long as your devotion to Izzet is less than 7, it is not a creature. You reveal the first card you draw on each of your turns. Whenever you reveal a land this way, you draw a card, otherwise you lightning bolt something. Opting to go for Command Tower, so they now have blue mana available to them. I wonder if they have Exclude or Essence Scatter, something like that. Maybe they were debating whether or not they wanted to counter the Judith. We can throw Judith into the graveyard if it gets countered and then go for Unearth. That is the reason that Unearth is in the deck. Yeah, we'll still go for Judith here. Looks like they do have a counter spell. It's Arcane Denial. We'll get to draw a couple of cards off that, so won't find me complaining. I think we will put Judith into the graveyard so we can reanimate her next turn with Unearth, or we can use Animate Dead if we want to. We draw 2 cards here. Our opponent draws 1. We also get Entomb. That is worth putting a stop on the upkeep for. Just need to have a look and see what we might like to cheat out of the graveyard. Yeah, our opponent went for Muldrifter there, so they're tapped out, but that's not to say that they can't counter anything. We'll definitely go for Entomb, because we can cheat something out with Animate Dead here. We can also get Judith back out of the graveyard as well, because we do have a land in our hand. And I'm currently thinking Grave Titan. I think Grave Titan would be alright. So we go for... yeah, we'll just go for the mountain here. And then we animate dead on Grave Titan. So even if our opponent manages to burn Grave Titan or just get it off the field somehow, bounce the animate dead, at least we got, well, one, we got something out of our opponent's hand, but also we got some zombie tokens out of the deal. And now there's a real threat on the board for our opponent, especially if we get a haste enabler, because Judith does give +1 to all of the creatures' power. Animate Dead gives -1 to the enchanted creature's power, so that's why Grave Titan is still a 6/6. Judith and Animate Dead cancel each other out in that regard. Halimar Depths coming down for our opponent, and they get to reorganise the top 3 cards of their library with that. 3 red mana added to the pool, so I was just going to say, might be seeing a board wipe here. And I forgot to change the zones for Exile. Exile. Now, I didn't change the zones. As we can see there, this might be worth remembering for people who play Magic Online. I didn't change the zones, so it should have gone to the graveyard. Anger of the Gods says if a creature dealt damage this way would die, exile it instead. What Magic Online should have done there was put her into the command zone instead of exile. But she's gone into exile. So that's that. No Judith for the rest of the game. We have to make use of our deck as it stands without our commander, which is very annoying. That was a mistake on my part that I should have, as soon as she came out, I should have changed that so that she doesn't hit the graveyard, but still, she shouldn't have gone into exile. If we can get enough damage in on our opponent, we might be able to finish them off with ribbons, from cut to ribbons. Let's go in for a Dark Confidant, and then we might as well get Faithless Looting down. And is Rakdos Charm, do we care about that? I don't think we care about cut either. So why don't we just get rid of Rakdos Charm and cut to ribbons? And then we can actually just go for Faithless Looting again. I think I like being quite aggressive with that. Alright, Hero's Downfall. Yeah, we'll get rid of Fatal Push and Toxic Deluge. I don't think our opponent's going to be playing many creatures in this deck. And plus we would lose out more on a Toxic Deluge. Oh, that feels bad. Going for a tutor. Don't know what they're going for here. Might be a board wipe of some kind. I mean, how much mana do they have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Yeah, they go for Cyclonic Rift. And Ashnod's Altar, we get a card draw from Dark Confidant, which doesn't deal too much to us in Spawning Pit. Get down our Urborg. And then we'll just swing in here. Not going to worry too much about the maths of it. I just wanted to do the damage first because I want to know how valuable Fiery Confluence is going to be for us. That is 2 damage to each opponent. We can do 6 damage to our opponent, which might mean a win next turn. How about we go for the Duretti Ingenious Iconoclast, and then we can sacrifice an artifact. I think I want rid of that Ashnod's Altar, but do I want rid of it desperately enough to... Well, we can always get rid of it with Fiery Confluence. I'm just going to hope that our opponent doesn't have a combo with that in hand. We can get rid of the Ashnod's Altar next turn. I don't like that being sat on the field. I'm hoping they miss a land drop. If they had a land, I would think that they would just throw it down and hold up Cyclonic Rift. Yeah, our opponent threw up the good game there. They needed a land, like we said, to get the Cyclonic Rift off. I'm not sure Cyclonic Rift would have helped them anyway. We could go for Vampiric Tutor in response, and then... yeah, maybe you've got... we don't have Cabal Coffers in this deck, just looking over at the deck list. No, we don't, so we couldn't have beaten them with Ribbons next turn. How much mana did we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that would have been 5. Yeah, we still would have gotten Grave Titan and Animate Dead back into our hand, so we could have still had the game won anyway, but it would have taken us a few more turns. As it stands now, they couldn't bounce everything back to our hand, so we just swing in next turn for the win, and then potentially finish them off with the cut to Ribbons. But a worthwhile mention is that Judith ended up in exile because I didn't change her zone. She should have gone into the command zone instead of exile. I've already been over this, but it's a worthwhile thing to remember. If your commander is in play on Magic Online and you want to put her into the graveyard, but instead of going into the graveyard she would be exiled, she'll go into exile whether you have her go into exile or not, apparently. So that's a worthwhile mention, but it's also cool that we can win without our commander in play, apparently. Hope you all enjoyed it. That was Judith the Scourge Diva versus Keranos, God of Storms. I'm tribalkai on the EDH channel. Thank you for watching.